Welcome, friends. I'm Andrew Lazaga.
And I'm Dubside.
And you are listening to the Dubcast with Dubside. So, Dubside, did you see that Brian Schultz reached his goal in raising money for the school kids in Tiniteqilaaq to go to the Greenland Games?
Yeah, I heard about that. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, because when I found out about that, when he said that he had, like, was it last year they sent a couple kids and they wanted to send a bunch of kids this year, which means that they had it last year. I didn't even know about that. And it means they're having it again this year. But doesn't look like I'll be making it there, unfortunately. But I'm happy that these kids are. That's really good.
Yeah, he set a goal of $15,000 and he raised over $15,900. I think the last time I checked. So pretty impressive. Even the GoFundMe team donated money.
Wow.
Yeah. In the comments, they said it really touched them. So
yeah.
So if anyone out there is still interested, there's still time to donate. And it's a fantastic cause to send the kids from a remote village in East Greenland to the Greenland Games. Brian says that it costs just as much to travel from East Greenland to West Greenland as it does to fly from Greenland to the United States.
Yeah, that is the case. They had this huge budget, the Greenland Tiniteqilaaq, but most of it is spent on transportation costs to get the people and the kayaks to the event on West Greenland. And so they even get the East Greenlanders come, it would be even more. So they need outside money. So yeah, it's an expensive process.
Aren't some of these competitions in towns that are really difficult to access? I mean, you can only get there by ferry or by helicopter.
Well, they'll have some sort of either a heliport or an airport, and then the ferry goes to them. But they're spread out. So the main flights that go to the big airports, Tiniteqilaaq or Narsarsuaq, the towns are at various distances from those things. So you get to the main airport, and then you got to pay to get from there to the next place. So it adds up.
Did we already talk about what you thought about Brian's interview? I know you get these recordings a few days afterwards in the mail. The last time I sent you something, the micro SD card didn't work, so I had to send it again. So there was a bit of a delay there.
Yeah, so I heard the Brian stuff. Yeah, when he talks about that, the whole like psychology of learning to roll and stuff, that's really amazing. He's done some really good thinking about that, and I like what he says about like if the roll doesn't work. The more you keep on doing it, the more you're just reinforcing the bad habit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it does make sense. If you don't have somebody standing there telling you, don't do that sort of thing, you're just trying to guess how it works. That's what happens. When I practice rope maneuvers, the low rope maneuvers, I've knocked out those pretty much, but every so often I'll come across one and I'll get it wrong, and I'll keep getting it wrong. And it's just like some wires got crossed because I was doing it just instinctively. You're not really thinking about it, and something got shifted over. And I've heard stories about baseball pitchers who completely fall apart and just can't even get over the plate in the middle of a game with a crowd watching. It's the same sort of thing where suddenly something's wrong and you just cannot do it, and you're so frustrated. Like I do this all the time. I can do this, and you can't do it. And I think it's well taken. You got to stop right then. Stop. Don't reinforce anything, and come back later a different time and try to get everything to reset.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. I also have practiced way beyond the point where I should have stopped. Trying to force yourself to do it.
Yeah.
I've also noticed an interesting pattern where if you're trying to learn a difficult roll, you can get it, and then after a while you lose it before you get it again.
No, I tell everybody, whether it's the first roll or anything after that, you got it, you'll lose it, you have to find it again, and you'll go through that process a couple of times before you really lock it in.
Uh-huh.
It's just the way it works.
Yeah, really interesting. Don't get discouraged. That's part of the process. Okay, well, without further ado, here is Dubcast number 26, continuing the story of how you got to be head judge of the Greenland National Kayaking Championships.
Yes, and this involves a situation where it became a conflict of interest.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast number 26. This will be a continuation of my story of the first time I was a judge at the Greenland competition and what happened when Karen Marie Jensen competed for the first time. Also have some music by a woman named Katsi Kleist, who put out a CD and also appears on a very noteworthy CD. And she actually competed in the Greenland competition in 1997. So to recap from episode 25, after going to the Greenland Kayak Championships for many years, in 2009, I helped a woman named Karen Marie Jensen learn her first roll, and she got several rolls. And then she, through another fortunate set of circumstances, came to the Delaware event that fall in October, and we taught her several more rolls. She was doing hand rolls on both sides, and I was very excited that the next year she'd be competing in rolling for the first time. She was an expert on ropes for a long, long time, but this would be her first time rolling. And through a set of unexpected circumstances, I not only was asked to judge, I became the head judge that year in 2010. Give you an idea of the layout, this is Nuuk, and there's a rocky shoreline with a little dock ramp that goes down to a dock where boats can launch from, and they're using that to stage the kayak rolling. And I'm up maybe 15 feet higher than that, where it flattens out to the edge of a parking lot. And there's a steel shipping container with a little table and some chairs in there. And I've got a bullhorn in my hand, megaphone. I can call out the rolls, and there's somebody assisting me writing down the score sheet, and also running down to the ramp to tie on the avatak for the avatak roll, the hunting float, or to hand them the brick or the ping pong ball for those rolls. And we get started sometime in the morning. It's a rather cloudy day. A little chilly. It may be the low 50-degree Fahrenheit. A bit of a breeze, perhaps. That year in Nuuk, the numbers were down somewhat, the participation. There was maybe between 50 to 75 people. Sometimes it's been double that, but we didn't have as many people competing that year. And there was just maybe a dozen people signed up for the rolling. And as I described last time, calling the names of the rolls out in Greenlandic in front of a Greenlandic audience was a bit intimidating for me, but I knew the words, and I got used to it, and I got into a good rhythm. So we're proceeding with the individual rolling event. Maligiak was not there that year, but Kununguaq, a good friend of Maligiak from Sisimiut, was probably the best guy there, and he did 260 points, so that's a top score. And there was one or two other guys did between 1 and 200. So a guy named Imanaraq, and I've met him many times before that. He was very good on ropes, and I'd never seen him roll before. For various reasons, some people just don't pick up on rolling until later if they do. And he signed up for rolling for the first time. And so I'm judging him, and I can see he has been working. He's been practicing because he is knocking out. He's well past 50 points. He's doing forward and backward ending rolls. Very impressive. Now, remember I told you about there's a rule that says that if your tulik comes off of the combing, you're disqualified. Well, Imanaraq is well past 100 points, looking really good. And then the guy assisting me nudges me, and he motions, the combing. He's saying, look, the combing's off. And Imanaraq is looking down at his combing. He sees it too, and he knows that's it. There's no getting around it. He's disqualified. And we said, sorry. My assistant knew how to say that in Greenlandic, sorry, you're disqualified. And so he stopped, and he got a score of 0, and that's the rules. He knew the rules, we knew the rules, and it was kind of regrettable that he lost the chance to score so well, but that's the way it goes. So if there are 10 people rolling and they each get half an hour, that is 5 hours. And sometimes they take a little bit less, but then you have to take time in between to get the next person to prepare. So it's a long day. And as I was the only judge there, we just had one judging station, so I had to be there the whole time. And it starts getting cloudier, and a little bit of rain kicks in. So the spectators that we had sort of drift off, and there's not as many people around. But we got to keep on going. And if you recall from the last episode, I said there was Tiniteqilaaq was a past president of the Greenland Kayak Association, and he was running the competition. But Niels Thomassen was the president of Tiniteqilaaq, so that he's over everything. But pretty much Tiniteqilaaq was in charge for that particular event. And I'm trying to get through it all. And, if this guy's ready to go, we'll have him going. And this guy's, is he ready? And Niels is telling me, no, he can't go before this guy. There's a special order they have to go in. So he's trying to get me straight out. Like, no, it's his turn. He's got to go now. And, the guy will say, oh, he's not ready yet. And they say, no, he's got to go. Come on, he's got to get ready. And so, it's people don't want to wait too long in the water because they get cold, because it's chilly, and the rain is not helping matters either. So there's a Danish woman who was going to compete, and so I judged her. And then we were mixing some of the men and women up, just the way the order was going. But Niels comes to me and he says, "Oh, Karen Marie, she's not going to roll." I said, "Wait a minute. What? No. She needs to roll. Like I spent all this time working with her. Come on." And Niels thinks, "Oh yeah, we've invested a lot in her. Yeah, she does need to roll." So he goes off to tell her to get with it. We only had a few women signed up to roll, but there was Marie Christine Samuelson, who's one of the past champions. So I judge her. She gets 23 points. And then Malina Amundsen, another past champion. So Malina just goes for layback rolls up to the Norsak roll, and she gets 38 points. And there's a guy named Christian from Denmark, and he rolls like 100 points or so. Good roller. So he competes, and then finally, I think it was back and forth a little bit with Karen Marie. She didn't want to. She did want to. It's the day. I almost finished everybody else, and it's got even chillier, and you just feel like. Let's get this done. Let's get this finished. And I can see from her perspective, she's like, I don't want to roll. It's too cold out here. I'm not going to get all suited up and get in the kayak, and I just don't want to do it. But I told Niels, no, get her in a tule, get her. She has to roll. She must roll. I was insisting on it. So I finished with Christian, I think, and he would have been the last one if Karen wasn't going to go. And I turn around, and there's Karen there in a tuilik, the sealskin tuilik, looking at me, and she goes, "I'm going to kill you." And I said, "That's fine, but before you do that, get in the water and roll, please." So she gets in a kayak, and she gets out there, and I was really excited. So her father, you remember her father, who years later passed away, very sad, but her father, Knud Jensen, was in a kayak in the water to watch her roll. And I asked Christian to stay out there in the water. And so we started off, Tiniteqilaaq, the side scull. And she lays down and does the side scull just right. Then the other side, she does the other side. And so she had never learned any forward-ending rolls. I hadn't got that far in teaching her. And we hadn't really done any competition coaching with her. So she's trying. I call out, the shiukut pashlatishu mashikut, which is a storm roll. And I think her father just pantomimes, here you hold the paddle like this and you go like this. And so she tries it, and of course she fails. She has no idea how the forward-ending rolls work. And so Christian, who's behind her, just paddles up and does the hand of Pavia rescue. Remember, I told you that it's like you pull the person up out of the water by just twisting the end of their kayak. So he pops her back up. And I say, want to try the other side? And she tries the other side and misses that, and then he pops her back up, and then it moves on to other rolls. So she's doing the shotgun roll or the behind the neck roll laying back, but then it comes to the forward behind the neck or the behind the back ones. And I certainly wanted to tell her, don't bother trying the ones you haven't learned. You're just getting colder. Just do what you know. But that wasn't my role there. I was a judge. My job was to call the rolls out in order, and she had the opportunity to try whatever she wanted. So she keeps on going. Then I get to the sculling rolls, Masikut ala Chinook, and her father shows the motion, so she tries it, then she doesn't make that one, and Christian does another Hand of Pavi rescue. And this is certainly a big difference from when I first taught her to roll. She was afraid to even get her face wet. Now she is comfortable and confident enough to wait underwater in the ice-cold darkness for Christian to pull her back up. I guess she found it was easier to wait for the rescue than to set up underwater repositioning. So she gets up to the Norsok rolls, laying back, and then the hand rolls, and then the closed fist rolls. And I can see she's already up to like 70, 80 points. And so she's clearly, she's got the gold medal, because the others didn't get it. She's got double their score already. So she finishes, and by the end, I think she was passing on some of them, as she wisely should have. She's not going to do forward hand rolls, but so she's got a nice high score, and she doesn't know exactly how much it is, but she's proud, and her father was so proud of her there. And so she finishes, and so I come down, walk down the ramp onto the little floating dock there as she gets out. I had somebody take a picture of us on the dock there. She's dripping wet in sealskin, but she's got a big smile. And then she needs to go get dried off, so she makes her way out, back up the dock. And so almost all the spectators had gone at that point because it was cold and chilly and rainy. But I think Yenserak was still way up above the parking lot there, up on that level. And Niels comes walking down as Karen Marie is going up the ramp, the steps. Niels comes down and he says, "Oh, Dubside, we could see that you were helping her, so she's disqualified." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "No, she's disqualified because you can't. You're not allowed to help her, so she's out." And I was speechless. Are you serious? I couldn't, because if I'd wanted to help her, if I had helped her, I would have said, "Hey, don't do those rolls. You don't know it." I certainly had the coaching idea in my head, but I didn't. I held back. I just called out the rolls. That was my job. And so then it became a rather touchy situation because this is the first time I'd ever judged, and I'd fallen into the position of head judge, as I explained before. And I'm pretty sure that the directive to disqualify her came from Yenserak, who was up on the top of the hill there, and just told, Niels, she's disqualified, go tell Dubside. And Niels was just passing on the message. Now, Yenserak, as I may have said before, his name is Yenserak Amundsen. And Melina, who had a higher score than the other woman, so she would have got the gold medal, except for Karen Marie beat her out. Melina's name is Melina Amundsen. Melina is the daughter of Yenserak. Where I come from, that is a pretty clear conflict of interest. For him to decide that Karen Marie's score does not count, that would ensure that his own daughter does get the gold medal. I certainly thought that was something to take exception to. However, I was in a foreign culture and didn't want to make any unnecessary waves, didn't want to cause a fuss. Here's the foreign judge making a big issue of something. So I just had to keep my mouth shut. Later on, when Karen Marie had gotten changed and dried off, I saw her walking down the pathway on the road there, and she still didn't know. And she smiles at me and says, "Oh," and I said, "Oh, did you hear? They disqualified you." And she was, when she fully understood what I was telling her, she was rather perturbed, as you'd expect, and she never spoke to me again for that whole year. I think the next year she didn't speak to me. I can't blame her. She was very unhappy about that. But I couldn't complain about it because I didn't want to make a fuss being the foreigner there. So she rolled very well, but she got a score of nothing. There was a guy from Canada there who was videotaping, and he said that he noticed maybe at one point my assistant, who was down on the dock, tying on the avatak and things like that, may have just motioned or made some little comment or something that could have been characterized as helping her. But he didn't see that I had done anything that would provide her assistance. And there's other ways you could handle that. You could say, well, how about if she, whatever that was, help was given for that particular role, she could not get credit for that role, but for everything else, she could get points. There's, rather than just wipe her score out completely. But that's not the way they did it in Greenland that time. Well, the Kayak Woman of the Year title, they have, there's actually the first, second, and third place finishers get trophies for that. And they get called up to the platform and during the ceremonies. And so in the end, Melina was first and Marie Christian was second, and the Danish girl was third. And Karen Marie missed out and was fourth place. But if she had gotten that medal, the gold medal that she'd earned in rolling, she would have been third place and got some trophies to take home. So I still feel bad about it to this day, but I don't know what I could have done differently. That was, that's just the way it worked. I just had to accept it. And I don't think Karen Murray actually talked to me for another, might have been three years or so after that, where she finally sort of acknowledged me and said hi. Well, there was something of an upside to the incident. In not making an issue of the matter, I stayed in the good graces of Jenseraaq and Niels. And Jenseraaq, from all the way back when I first met him in 2004, in fact, I'd even been told, he's the guy, you can never quite tell what he's thinking. It's sort of uncertain if he wants you to even be there, or, just kind of uneasy around him. But after this, and in the years that came, I got to a point where Jenseraaq was totally cool with me. And nowadays, whenever I see Jenseraaq, he's got a big smile, calls me by name, Dubside, and we're on very good terms. And I hope to get back to where I was with Karen Marie originally. At this point, I haven't been to Greenland in a couple of years, but when I go back, I hopefully will be able to maybe give her another rolling lesson, or maybe she's ready to give me a rolling lesson. The next year, in 2011, the competition was held in Sisimiut, which is Maligiak's hometown, and he was living in Alaska at this point, but he came back to Greenland that year for the competition, and he did not compete. He was doing the judging. I think they put me and him on doing the main judging for the 20 to 34-year-old age categories. Now, you remember Jan Peter Mueller, the guy who was the head judge who walked off the job the year before and left me as the head judge. Well, he showed up in Sisimiut the next year, and Maligiak told me that in the meetings they had ahead of time, they had decided that whoever was the people in charge decided that they didn't like the way that Jan Peter had conducted the judging, so they busted him down to the level of just a regular competitor. And he'd already made the trip from Nuuk to Sisimiut, so what else was he going to do? So he very good-naturedly just participated as a regular competitor. He didn't actually do the rolling. But the ropes, he did over 200 points, which he's gotten a good deal better than that back in his prime. But he was, he did the ropes, and he did the races and the harpoon throwing. And normally the administrative staff gets to stay at a hotel, not the most expensive hotels, but sort of the mid-level hotel. And this is all paid for as part of the Kanakatufiat budget. The year before, I'd stayed in the apartment at one of the other local competitors there and slept on the living room floor, even though I was the head judge. And so this year, Maligiak said that he would check to see what they could do for me. He could get a place for me to stay in with the other staff there. And he went and asked, checked with Yen Sirak and whoever, and came back and said, yes, Dubside, you can stay there in the hotel. Now, I haven't described the accommodations for the teams. They'll take over the local school, and you might get a classroom for each team. And then there's the shower situation is, well, there's the gym, and there's some showers in the gym, which certainly aren't, all that private. But it's Greenland, you have to just make do. So Maligiak said, they'll have a room for you at the hotel. You can stay there. You're on the judging staff. And they gave me my own hotel room with my own private bathroom. And even though there are 2 beds in the room, it was just me in there. So I was living large. And I figured out later that the past judge, Jan Peter Muller, who was that year busted down to regular competitor, that was the room he would have been in. But they kicked him out of that room, and I got that room. And there were some interesting experiences when Maligiak and I did the judging. One morning we were getting ready to do rolling, and I'm so concerned about, do we have all the score sheets and the stopwatches, and then we also need the avatak, make sure, and the bricks, where are the bricks? And if anybody wants to do the walrus pull, we need the rope for that. And he looks at me and he says, Dubside, all you have to do is just sit there and write down what I tell you. That's all you have to worry about. That is the polite Greenlandic way of saying, Dubside, will you shut up and chill out? We got this. I'm the American, all worried about every possible thing that could go wrong. And he's the Greenlander just saying, we got it. Don't worry. So I had to restrain myself from further concern and sit there and shut up and just write down what he told me to write down. When we did the races, they had set up in Sissimut a race course we're sitting on the edge of the fjord, and there are buoys to the right, like a mile or so, and then there are buoys to the left, maybe a mile or 2. And the far buoy is where the men go around, and the shorter one is where the women go around. So they can go out to the left, come back, pass through, and go to the right. And so we're doing a long distance race, which is going to take most of the entire day because they're long races and they're different ones to do. So the women go racing out there. So I'm thinking we can save some time if we run some races simultaneously. Well, I had my audio recorder with me, so I'll take you back to that moment right now.
I had a wild idea, but it's too late now.
What?
We run the men's and women's race at the same time. But they probably don't have enough rescue boats to cover that,
Yeah.
But that would make the day go faster. Because we're going to be here till 9 or 10.
No, we can start the men in the time before the women start. That's the
What
other
do you mean
thing.
before they already start? You mean before they finish?
Yeah,
I'm into that.
in the time.
But is there enough rescue boats to cover all that?
We don't have to worry about men. Everybody can roll.
So then Maligiak grabs a microphone and announces what we're going to do.
So we're going to do it?
Nope.
How soon?
In the time, 5:30.
Now, quick changes in the schedule like this can create problems for some of the competitors, as we found out.
I mean, he's not here, so he doesn't know the changing plan.
You
No.
have to know?
He probably expect that it will start after the womb, but I'm sure.
Yeah. Right on.
And somebody trying to say, oh, one of the women used my kayak.
Yeah, so
One
what
of
did you
the
say
men.
to that?
That's not my problem. Just get you.
So you see, somebody had lent their kayak to someone else and was expecting to get it back before their race started. But Maligiak just told him effectively, deal with it, dude. And that is often how things work in Greenland. All right, time for the music. There is a woman named Katsi Kleist. And when she was 16 years old, she competed in 1997. And as far as I know, that was the only year she competed. And she, I guess, had been practicing before that because she did a rope score of 95, which is a very good score for a 16-year-old girl. And in rolling, she did 47 points. And for both of those in 1997, in the 15 to 17-year-old girls category, that got her a gold medal. And actually, those scores were by far the highest scores in that group. Well, Katsi didn't stick with kayaking, but she is a fine vocalist. And she was asked to participate in a project that resulted in an album called Zedna, Zedna. This is a project by Isaac Mola and Steen Linge, two guys who were producers and arrangers, and they had the idea to get all the top Greenland female vocalists at the time to sing these songs that they had written and put it out on one album. So on this CD, you can hear Stine Jacobsen, remember her? I gave a song she did before. And Nina appears on this CD. And other people I haven't mentioned before. There is a woman named Julie, who usually does her stuff in English, one of the finest vocalists in Greenland, and a woman named Tuparnok, who I'll get to more later. All those and Katsi Kleist appear on this CD, and it's a very well done CD. I'm going to give you a version of the song Katsi Kleist does on this CD. It's called Aputit Nakakasut, which translates to the snowflakes falling. The lyrics are inspired by the Arctic weather, talking about as if living in a dream, the snow turning the world white. So here is Aputit Nakakasut.
Aputit nakakasut no nosso ak e choro kakotumik senatut selasuanut evunga que se ama e se chora senatut na yugani chakoler pagit umatishu na yugani e se juta Aputit nakakasut Ilashuit akotutut Hipugut Mesigisat Minguitsut Aputitut Nutasutut Pigilepavut תות נאיוגני ביסילה פגית ומתישתו נאיוגני פיגירש דותה
Okay, if you've been listening to the Dubcast for a while, or if you haven't, if this is your first one, and you haven't yet gone to atlanticmusic.gl to look at the music available there, let me recommend for a first CD, this one. It's called Zedna, Z-E-D-N-A. It's got this yellow cover, looks like kind of waves on the water with the letters of Zedna sitting there. There's these eyes faded into the background. Anyway, Zedna. And if you've been picking up some of my recommendations over these past Dubcasts, and you have several of them, let me say that no Greenlandic music collection is complete without Zedna. In addition to appearing on the Zedna CD, Katsi Kleist has done her own solo album, which is entitled Kayaking. And if you recall, that means thank you in Greenlandic. If you don't have any of Katsi's music, I'd recommend buying Zedna first. That's because there's lots of other good artists on Zedna, including a woman named Julie, who does most of her stuff in English. She sings Greenlandic on Zedna, but she has several solo albums, which are good, if you don't mind lyrics in English. Coming up in episode 27, I will tell you the secret of being an expert kayak roller. And if you happen to have taken classes with me anytime, you may have heard me describe that secret. It can be described in one word: the secret of mastering the green rolls. And I'll tell you that next time on the Dubcast.